Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Switching slides. Oh, come into the lights. Come into the light. There you go. Everyone can see your face now.
I can't see you.
I know it's dazzling. But Michael, could you tell us a little bit about the origin of the project? Really, you've got 3 different directors, yourself included.
Yeah.
But Jörg Buttgereit hadn't made a film for a great number of years. I guess he's mostly famous here for Necromantic. And Andreas Marschall made Masks. How did the project come about, and how did you manage to pull together such a fantastic team?
So actually, Andreas Marschall knows Jörg Buttgereit since the very beginning, when Jörg made Necromantic. Andreas did the poster design for Necromantic, and there is an anecdote that he didn't get paid for this job. So Jörg Buttgereit, when Andreas asked him if he wants to join this project, he had to say yes, because, he worked for free, basically. And I have met Andreas in Transylvania at the film festival, and we found out that we are actually neighbors in Berlin. So we immediately had an idea for an anthology film. And in February 2013 we met, and it took us exactly 2 years from the idea to the finished film.
And you've all got really very, very different backgrounds and very, very different approaches as filmmakers.
Right.
What are the kind of connecting threads between the films, or do they need to just stand alone and be seen?
I mean, the condition that we wanted to have was that the stories have to play in Berlin. We wanted to put Berlin in the foreground, and but every director was free to do whatever he wanted to do. And by the end, when the episodes were finished, we found out the similarities between the episodes, because all the episodes deal with this game between reality and dream, So this was a nice thing that we found out, but we wanted also to find a connection part between the episodes, which were the Super 8 shots of these gargoyle faces in Berlin, where you see them all around. And I thought this was a good idea to shoot, and this was it actually. And we actually also found out that the first episode is kind of playing in the morning, my episode is in the afternoon, and the last episode is in the evening. So you have like the whole cruel day in Berlin.
You've got a nice little cameo as a...
I was one of the guy at the entrance door, yes, right. We had to save money, so...
Yeah, so I was thinking you're the producer, so...
Yeah.
Talking about which, really, how did you manage to work as a producer? I know you're saying it's a two-year project. You've got... Each project has got its own kind of ambition, its own sort of sense of scale. Was it something you had to constantly be aware of? You were on top of all their projects all the time. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm doing also commercials in between that give me the space for doing this kind of crazy stuff. And but it was not easy to do it, because I have a family, 4 kids, and we produced also in partially over my flat. There was an empty apartment for Jörg Buttgereit's episode and for around it. So we shot there, and so my family was more or less involved constantly in the process of the filmmaking. My daughter was actually acting also in the flashback sequence where she's witnessing the massacre, and it was a hell of experience for her. We shot that actually in Poland with a Polish reenactment group. So these were Polish citizens who were acting the SS,
Right.
And it was really fascinating experience. But once you start, because we started with a crowdfunding campaign, and that was actually the starting money. And once a crowdfunding campaign is successful, then you have to finish the film, But obviously the money that we collected was not enough to finish the film. So I invited a few private investors, rich investors who are secretly big horror fans. And so they financed the film, and we finished it,
We'll want their names and addresses.
I can. One guy was the producer, Michel from Monaco, who was the producer of Map to the Stars.
Oh, right, yeah.
Cronenberg.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and he was into this project completely, and he saw that we were working in a really small group of people, and yeah.
Yeah, and of course, included in that kind of different styles and approaches there, you've got Jörg's film is very, very realistic, and his is very real, and then Andreas's film is spectacular in its makeup effects. Was that ever a worry for you as a producer, or did you?
Oh yeah, I mean,
the
cheapest episode was Jörg's because it was just one apartment. You know, it was Jörg is very, very scheduled. You know, when we say there are 6 shooting days, there are 6 shooting days. I was kind of, you know, I was the producer for my episode, so I exactly knew what to do. But Andreas was kind of exaggerated because, you know, he's very, very precise visually what he wants to do. So he had his own ideas of cameras and equipment that we had to check. You know, so it was more difficult to shoot his episode, and it cost me a lot of money.
Right. That's why it's the longest.
Yeah, yeah.
Have it all on screen. Yeah. You were talking earlier about how horror films should be about something, and the film certainly is very confrontational. Your story, for example, I mean, dealing with fascism and power. And you were saying on the website for the film as well that old horror films used to be about something. Do you worry that horror sometimes gets too safe and comfortable?
I mean, it depends in which mood I am, you know, but more and more I see horror films that are funny, you know, where people laugh. I mean, it's fine, you know, but I miss movies where, you know, where violence in horror films becomes a serious matter. So this is actually my approach to my movies, because I always deal with personal experiences that I had. Because when I grew up in Poland, and when I moved to Vienna, to Austria, when I was 10, I was confronted with violence in the school because I didn't speak German, so out of racist reasons. And then I had always this wish, you know, to change positions. That's how the story came alive, you know. But you know, it depends, you know, always depends on the idea you want to do, you know, you want to tell. And then you apply the form, you know.
Let's see if there's any questions from the audience, if we can actually see them. Are there any questions? I can't see.
Yeah.
Over there?
Yeah, really interesting, thanks. As a producer, did you have any creative input on the other 2 segments, or were you totally leaving them to it?
Actually, I had just the input from the production side, you know, so not creative. Okay, ultimately it was creative, because when I said this is too expensive, we can't shoot this, so we have to find another solution. But that was one of our conditions as well, that when I produced the movie, 3 of us, the 3 directors, will be able to have complete creative freedom to do whatever we want. Then, of course, later we had problems with the censorship. It's a separate topic in Germany. But, you know, this was actually the great thing, that we had no public funding for this film, just private investors, and they gave us also completely free hand to do whatever we wanted.
It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen as a film with British censors as well, I think.
Let's see.
Any other questions? Yep.
I'm just interested as a filmmaker what your influences are in terms of the horror genres, because I mean, historically in horror, there's always references to horror films, and we always like to make comparisons and say, oh, that reminded me of this, and that reminded me of this. With the last film, I think it reminded me of a little bit of Possession.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm interested to see what kind of you directed with yourself, where your emphasis comes in.
I mean, I really like the Nouvelle Vague cinema, and actually not horror cinema specifically, but I really like, you know, Lars von Trier movies, Gaspar Noé movies. I like movies that, you know, that are actually crossing borders, you know, and this is what is very interesting to me, and it creates a big inspiration in me, you know. I'm also a big fan of Jodorowsky movies, you know, and Jan Svankmajer. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. I did some animation movies as well. But actually, I'm coming from the documentary side and from also video art, experimental movies. I've done like 70 short films that's been shown in galleries, museums, and actually, you know, it turned out to be interesting to be in the cinema with this kind of film, because my first feature film was called Zero Killed, and that was like a 16-year project that I worked on, and it's a half documentary, half fiction film about the murder fantasies of 160 people from all over the world. So I basically asked 160 people about their murder fantasies, if they have any, and of course all of them had. And then I offered them to stage these murder fantasies as short films, but with these people as actors. So I had the insurance agent who wanted to be the child molester, I had the English teacher who wanted to be the mass murderer, you know. And oh my god. And it was like a long observation project, because 10 years later I met these people again, and I made interviews with them about their memories and how they would do this fantasy now, you know, or if they would do it in a different way, if they would do it, you know. So it was very exciting time, you know.
So they get to live out their fantasy and then to question aspects of the fantasy.
Yeah. So in the movie you see the act of killings that they are doing, and at the same time they are self-reflecting themselves, you know.
I think you get a lot of volunteers if you ever made like an English. Are there any questions from the audience? Sorry, we're dazzled by the light, but yes, over here.
Yeah, I think it was in two of them you had English, and some of it was in context because you had an English and I think a Ukrainian character.
Yes.
But there were parts where Germans were speaking English to each other and then it would go to German.
Yeah, that was the idea, because, you know, I just wanted to show that Nazis are everywhere, actually, you know. They are not connected to countries anymore today. So since I have this is my friend, good actor Dennis Lyons from Ireland, and so I thought it would be interesting to have him there in this group, you know, where, you know, you can't clearly say these are like typical neo-Nazis, but it was important for me to have this bigger picture of the scene, you know, because neo-Nazis are everywhere, you know, from Russia, you have them in Greece, you have them in the States, you have them everywhere, actually, you know, even Israel. That's very scary, you know.
Yeah, they are everywhere. It is troubling times.
Yeah.
And I think as well, there's something about looking at Berlin where there's a sort of very cosmopolitan.
Absolutely. There are areas in Berlin where you go and then you just hear English, you know. Nobody speaks German anymore, like in Kreuzberg, you know. It's amazing how many foreigners are there, you know. I mean, it's great because we have really mixed cultural scene there. And this was Andreas Marschall's idea, you know, that is about this guy from the US who lives in Berlin, who's a bottle photographer, and who communicates in English, you know, with the rest of the people that he meets.
So yeah, I was going to ask as well, or just if there are any more questions. Sorry. Yes, over there, Mike.
Yeah, you mentioned the getting past the censors. Did you have to dial it back a lot? Is there a lot that you had to cut out, or is that pretty much on visual?
God thanks, we didn't have to cut out anything, but it was like a very long story in Germany. I think it's probably the strongest and the most weirdest censorship in Europe, and because in the first, the British?
Well, yeah, the British censors at the moment are crazy, and there seems to be a lot more of a reactionary kind of stance at the moment, especially with horror films, it seems as well, and certainly with sex work definitely, but with horror there seems to be a snobbish, terrible kind of, oh, we'll give that an 18 or we won't pass it.
It's similar in Germany, yeah. It's very, you know, if you have bad luck, then, and we had bad luck in the first row where we applied for the 18 rating, and it was completely dismissed, you know. It was, they told us that it's pro-violence, you know, that you can't show it to the audience at all, you know. And it was a big problem for me as a producer because nobody buys cut versions in Germany, you know. And that's usually what they do. If they don't pass the censorship, then they get an 18 rating with the cut version. But of course, all the fans who are into these movies, they don't buy it, you know. So we went to appeal, because I knew that, you know, we have to really prepare better, you know, for the appeal. And I had because in Germany you can choose one person, there are 5 censors, and me as a producer, I could choose one. So it was a good friend of mine who is working there since ages. So he prepared himself very good, and he convinced all of them actually, you know. So we got then the 18 rating uncut.
Fantastic.
We were very happy, yeah. Because, you know, it would be really a tragedy for me, you know. And God thanks to this rating, we have really good sales in Germany.
And has the film been received well internationally as well? Now
Internationally, yeah. We've been now going around like 30 festivals. Just came back from the Sitges and from Fantastic Fest in Austin. And it's very interesting to see all the reactions, you know, different reactions. The most strangest reaction was in Helsinki, because they were all silent. You know? And the most funny reaction was in Brussels, because at the Brussels Fantastic Fest, because the people there, they constantly comment the movie, you know, they laugh and they just cheer, you know. It's you have to get used to it, but it's really funny.
Well, just as a final question, what are you working on at the moment? We were just talking about your new short.
Yeah, I just tomorrow I have the world premiere of my new short film. It's called The Stories of Mr. Christ in Poland, and it's a European film festival in Stettin, which is not far from Berlin, and we are showing this movie in a church with
It's a story of Mr. Christ in Poland in a church.
Yes, and the Bishop of Stettin is gonna be attending the so let's see.
Well, I hope he's going to like it.
Yeah, I hope.
Don't get thrown out of Poland tomorrow. Well, have a terrific screening in Poland.
Thank you.
And from everyone here as well, thank you very, very much, Michal Kosakowski. Thank you so much for making it.
Thanks.